All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Palmetto Dunes lifestyle session today. On the call today, we have Ben Brown with Palmetto Dunes POA. He will be sharing some PD investments going on, the lagoon management, and the pre-closing inspections. We also have Johanna with Alliance Realty and Jeff Hunt with Dunes Real Estate. They will both be sharing how to sell in Palmetto Dunes, the amenities, as well as the lifestyle in Palmetto Dunes. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Ben Brown to kick us off.
Good morning. My name is Ben Brown. I'm the Director of Planning and Property Operations for the Palmetto Dunes POA. And I joined the team in 2014. When I first started, I was predominantly hired to plan and implement capital projects. But over the last 6 years, my position has evolved a bit. So in addition to leading our capital program, I also support our facilities operations, our covenant compliance, and our ARB departments. But as you may know, Palmetto Dunes was originally developed in the late 60s and early 70s. And much of our infrastructure is reaching the end of its useful life. That's why I joined the team in large part. The community had done a great job of building up reserves, but we didn't have a long-range infrastructure replacement program like we do have today. And a lot of that original infrastructure is just old. It's a 50-year-old community. Also, Palmetto Dunes was originally developed without adequate drainage infrastructure. But over the last 6 years, we as a community have invested about $20 million over the last 6 years. And we're planning to invest another $30 million over the next 10 years on enhancing the community. And our ultimate goal is to completely finish our infrastructure replacement program by about 2032. So when you drive into the community, especially when you come down Queens Folly, everything looks new. And then you get deeper into the community and some of the areas look old and tired. It's just because we haven't addressed these areas yet. And it's really a puzzle in Palmetto Dunes because we have to finish one area before we can move on to the next. But what have we completed over the last 6 years? What I'm gonna talk about over the next few minutes is I want to briefly talk about the capital program, lagoon management, and then we're receiving a lot of questions about the closing property inspections. I'll talk about those as well. And then Joe and Jeff will join, and hopefully we have some good discussion. Over the past 6 years, one of the main projects we completed was the new offices at 16 Queens Folly. When you come into Palmetto Dunes, if you remember, on your right-hand side was the old fire station. Well, we purchased that property from the town. The town built a new fire station, and we redeveloped that area for our POA offices. That made a big difference in the way we conduct business. We used to have our administrative offices in Shelter Cove, and we had our pass offices and security offices in the old Greenwood double-wide trailer behind what's now our new offices. So that was a big improvement. Mooring buoy. When you come into Palmetto Dunes and you come down the Queens Folly corridor, you head towards the Marriott. You have Hotel Circle. You either can go north to the Mariner side, or you can go south to the Inverness side and ultimately to Leamington. Well, on the north end of Palmetto Dunes, Mooring buoy is the main roadway into the Mariner section. That part of the community was just in bad shape. Palmetto Dunes, the POA was originally developed back in 2006. That was a transition from Greenwood, the developer, to PDPOA. And up until about 6 years ago, there was just a lot of deferred maintenance in the community. But that was a fun project for me to get involved with because we were able to make a lot of improvements that will have generational improvements for Palmetto Dunes. For example, the roadway was in bad shape and there was no separated pathway. The only thing separating pedestrians from vehicles was a white stripe on the road. And I have great memories. My cousins grew up in Sea Pines. I used to spend my summers in Sea Pines. I love bicycling. And for years and years, Palmetto Dunes, great community, great beach, lagoon system, beautiful trees, but we did not have a great pathway system. Now, 30 plus years later, I would argue that we have the best pathways on the island. And mooring buoy was an example of that. We shifted the entire road towards the ocean. So then we could create a nice piece of green space between the road and the pathway. And then we had a nice 8-foot wide pathway. And when we first started that project, there were some owners that were concerned that we were going to destroy what they love about the community. They love the trees. They love the residential character of the area. But now, 6 years later, folks are really supportive of our capital program. And I'll talk about it in just a minute, but Port Tack was a project that we recently completed, and the members asked for, we want more pathways. The property owners wanted pathways on Port Tack. Starboard Tack was an area we finished a few years ago. The owners wanted pathways on Starboard Tack. The Queens Folly Corridor is a big success story. Over the last 6 years, we've completely redeveloped the Queens Folly Corridor. So when you come into the community, everything looks new. But as I mentioned, I've been visiting Palmetto Dunes since the mid-'80s, and I can't remember a time that the corridors look better. But we have new roads, we have new pathways, the gatehouse, we have the new bridges, great views of the lagoon. It's a beautiful entry into the community. The bridge replacement program, we have 12 vehicular bridges in Palmetto Dunes. You may know we have the 11-mile navigable lagoon system, but that means we have a lot of bridges. We have replaced 5 of 12 bridges over the last 5 to 6 years. We have 7 more bridges that will replace over the next 10 years. And we are significantly enhancing these bridges, whereas the original bridges and really the original infrastructure was installed to last for about 40 years. What we're installing now will serve the community for at least another 80 years. So these bridges are built to last. They're the right width, they're the right look. We also have a separated leisure path, which significantly improves the safety on these bridges. We've also replaced several beach boardwalks with ramps over the dune system over the last 5 to 6 years. In Palmetto Dunes, we have 18 beach accesses. So we have really good access to our beaches. And historically, there were kind of steep steps that went up over the dune system, and we've been replacing those with nice ramps that are far more accessible to the beach. And it's when I started, particularly from some of the board members, they were saying that we have folks in here who are getting older. They need to be able to walk to the beach. We have kids on bikes. They need to be able to ride their bikes to the beach. We have people with needs who need to be able to access the beach. I'm really proud to say that we've replaced several of our beach accesses with ramps, and my goal is to eventually replace every beach access with a ramp to the lagoon, to the beach over the dune system. We've built fishing and kayak docks to improve accessibility to the lagoon system. We've significantly improved drainage in the community. As I mentioned, we've invested about $20 million over the last 5 to 6 years. We're anticipating another $30 million over the next 10 years, and $5 million of that is specifically targeted towards drainage improvements. But Armada, Brigantine, and Catboat off of Mooring Buoy were examples of areas where the drainage infrastructure was just completely shot. We went in and put in new infrastructure, and that'll serve those folks for another 50 years. We rebuilt the road. So these are generational improvements, and that's our goal over the next 10 to 12 years, is to fix everything in all of our rights of way in Palmetto Dunes. Starboard Tack was a big project that we finished earlier this year. Starboard Tack included replacing 2 bridges, significantly improving. I'm sorry, I said we finished Starboard Tack a couple years ago. We're over at Port Tack. Port Tack included 2 bridges, significant drainage improvements, as well as paving and a new pathway. And in full candor, I took some heat about a year and a half ago for recommending that much work at one time. But it's really helped pay dividends in our community. By bundling that much work, we are able to realize savings of about $400,000 for our property owners. And we were able to get all of the work done at one time. One of the challenges with us working in the community is we can only manage these infrastructure projects during the off season. So really from after Labor Day until about April, that's our construction window. So we try to get done as much work as possible. The pathway, as realtors, I wanted to mention that the pathway was funded with our CEF funding. That's our community enhancement funding. That's the 0.5% on real estate transactions. That money cannot be used towards things like replacing bridges. That money has to be used on enhancing the community. And last year, we thought we would have about $500,000 in CEF revenue. $500,000 would be about $100 million worth of real estate transactions. We actually brought in over $600,000 worth of CEF money. So we've had a lot of real estate transactions last year, and this year has been significantly busier than last year. The big project that's coming up is Sea Lane, and also includes Weather Shore, Lee Shore, and a section of Starboard Tack. This area, the community, is completely void of drainage infrastructure. It has an absolutely beautiful canopy. It's one of the most beautiful areas in the community. But when it was originally developed, they didn't put in any drainage pipes, which worked for 40 plus years when we had a lot of vacant lots, because most of that stormwater would work its way into the vacant lots, infiltrate, disappear. But now we're in a position where the water has nowhere to go. So that's going to be a big project. We're going to start in September and finish that up, hopefully April timeframe. That's assuming good weather. And a couple other quick projects I wanted to mention. These weren't infrastructure projects, but these were board priorities. We had a strategic planning team put together in 2016 and 2017. This was an initiative by our board to really put together a framework for the next 5 years. And one of the things that were discussed during the strategic planning team was that we don't have as many amenities as some of our competitors. For example, Sea Pines has Tower Beach. We don't have a beachfront amenity. So our board looked at opportunities to possibly acquire property, redevelop property. They purchased Seven Lee Shore in 2018, a beautiful piece of property. The community we don't know exactly what's going to happen with that property. It really could be about three things. One, it could be an active area like a moorland village in Palmetto Bluff. However, I doubt that would be supported by our community. It could be a passive park, access to the lagoon, or it could also be subdivided into 4 lots and sold. But that's ultimately something for our community and board to decide. Our board has looked at beachfront amenity possibilities. The Dunes House was identified as an area that could possibly be redeveloped with a partnership with Greenwood. So right now, Seven Lee Shore is on hold until we can fully vet a possible partnership that makes sense for our members as well as for the resort at the Dunes House. But I really think it's about 2 years until something could come to fruition on that. There are a lot of moving parts. Lagoon management, brief update on lagoon management, but Palmetto Dunes has an awesome amenity. It's our lagoon system. It is an 11-mile navigable lagoon system. We also have 15 acres of freshwater lakes, but this is more than just an amenity. This is a lifestyle. And one of my favorite things to do in Palmetto Dunes is to spend time with members on the lagoon. It's wine, it's cheese, it's recreating, it's kayaking. I had the opportunity, my wife and I went with another couple for a nighttime boat ride, full moon. It was great. We went to dinner at Alexander's. But that's part of that residential resort community. Our full-time residents still have access to the resort amenities, so it's really a unique balance. We've completed a lot of work in the lagoon system over the last 5 years. Before that, there was a lot of deferred maintenance, but we put together a lagoon management program, which was originally developed mostly by consultants. They anticipated about a 10-year program, about $6 to $8 million. I'm proud to say that we've completed that program in-house. The entire program cost about $2 million, and we completed it in about 5 years. But the lagoon system has never been healthier. It's in great shape, and it's a great amenity for the community. One item that I've received a lot of questions about is the proactive covenant compliance. That's the closing property inspections. And we may have some more questions about this after I finish my update. But back to that strategic planning exercise that our board had in 2016 and 2017, they identified 4 main priorities for our community. One was a balance between full and part-time property owners. And for all the realtors out there, we really love the full-time property owners. The visitors are great too, but the full-time property owners are so important for that balance of a residential resort community. We were asked to consider purchasing property for a community amenity. That's where the discussions about Seven Lee Shore and the Dunes House originated. We were asked to continue focusing on improving the lagoon system. We were also asked to enact reasonable, proactive covenant compliance policies. And I know my time is short, just some brief background on that, but this is something that is new to Palmetto Dunes. We historically had a reactive covenant compliance policy. This is a proactive policy. And we hired our first covenant compliance representative, Kenya Carswell. She's great. We hired her in late 2018, and she started doing baseline property inspections in 2019, where she looked at all 2,100 properties in Palmetto Dunes. That includes about 1,200 multifamily, 931 single family, and started putting together some baseline information on all of those properties. And last year, she had about 244 closing property inspections. And what this entails is she goes out on the property and she evaluates the property to make sure there aren't any existing covenant violations. And if there are any existing covenant violations, that gets documented and that goes to the seller. So if you're listing property in Palmetto Dunes, please ask your sellers to request a closing property inspection. That way there are no surprises when they're selling their property. Also at our office, if you stop by, we have these postcards which provide information on the closing property inspection process. But this year, Kenya's focused primarily on single family homes. And she really does that through education, sending out a lot of postcards, talking to folks. Education is the key to a successful program, as well as property inspections. And those closing property inspections have become a priority of our office, in large part because there's been so many of them. We've had more closing property inspections year to date than we had last year. And a lot of those have come over the last couple of months. We only had about 60 in the first quarter, and we've had over 200 in the last couple of months. But please ask your sellers to request those reports. Typically, any outstanding violations are addressed before closing. It's the POA's position that the buyer has 6 months to address any outstanding issues, but typically the closing attorneys want everything addressed before the transaction. But that's a really brief update on our capital program, lagoon management, our closing property inspections. Please, if you have any questions, let me know. But in conclusion, as realtors, please know that we understand that Palmetto Dunes isn't just somebody's home. It isn't just an investment. It isn't just a great place to visit. It's not just a great place to work, but it's part of who we are. We love this community, and I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I'm going to jump over to Jeff. If you want to tie in from a realtor perspective, the closing property inspection.
Yeah, so on those inspections, it's very important that as a listing agent, that you talk to your clients up front about this. If you haven't already had one, it's important to go ahead and get one and address those issues up front. As you know, dealing with any client, if we can, as many issues as we can address up front, it keeps them calm. It doesn't get to the end where 2 days before closing, you get a laundry list of things that you need to do to the property. This is not only, even if you have an as-is property, these repairs could be a little deeper than that. They could be construed as a title issue because in the future, the HOA could potentially foreclose on you or something like that and cause a title problem due to these things not being done. So it's important that you address it up front with your listings and make your buyers aware of it. When you go under contract, contact the PDPOA to see if they've done their inspection. And if they have, those items can usually easily be rectified pretty easily. Did you want me to continue with
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. That'd be great.
So as far as selling Palmetto Dunes, you're selling a lifestyle when you come into Palmetto Dunes. There are so many features in here that will give people great benefit. Ben had alluded to the 11-mile lagoon. This is probably one of the most unique properties literally on the East Coast. I mean, it's navigable, it's fishable, it's a lot of recreation can happen in there, from kayaking to little electric motorboats in your backyard. It's a fantastic experience when you take somebody out on a boat on that lagoon and let them see Palmetto Dunes from that side. In addition to that, there's 3 golf courses in here, world-class tennis facility, pickleball courts, bicycle trails, a few things that some people don't know about, like the general store serves probably some of the best fried chicken on the island for lunch. It's a nice place to take your people and sit on the deck out there and have lunch after you've shown a few properties and help them to experience what Palmetto Dunes is all about. You can rent kayaks, bicycles. There's just so much to do in here. And when you start exposing your clients to these things, selling the property becomes incredibly easy. Focus on the sizzle, not the steak, so to speak. There's a lot to be had in here. Even over at Shelter Cove, festivals under normal circumstances, not during COVID. We have lots of festivals there, live music, concerts at Shelter Cove, Shannon Tanner, fireworks every Tuesday night. It's a real family-oriented place, but it welcomes adult vacations as well. There's just so much to do here. So when I'm selling Palmetto Dunes, I focus on those things. That way, when I show them the villa that's 30 years old and needs a little bit of work, they can oversee that because they want to be part of the community. They want to be part of something really good, like Palmetto Dunes. So they overcome some of their objections whenever I'm selling. Couple of pointers when it comes to the villas in Palmetto Dunes. There's a Leamington section that starts at Hampton Place and goes down Ocean Lane. That is considered Leamington. You don't necessarily have access to the Leamington homes, but you're part of Leamington, and your annual fee in that section is actually lower than it is in the rest of Palmetto Dunes. There's actually 4 different fees in the Palmetto Dunes Shelter Cove area. Leamington is $32.32 a year. Palmetto Dunes is $1,800. Shelter Cove is $1,228, and Leamington, the villas in that Leamington area, the high density area, is $923 a year. A lot of agents don't know that. They think all of Palmetto Dunes is $1,800. So you can save your client a little bit of money in those areas. The golf packages that you can purchase in here, a lot of agents don't know about this. Sam Wolf, who's in charge of all of this, he can put together packages for your client. If you have a client that's coming down for 3 to 6 months and wants to play golf once a week, he can buy X number of rounds of golf at a discount and get preferential tee times and things like that. And then again, it's just another advantage of being in Palmetto Dunes that you can point out to your clients as you're taking them around. As Ben alluded to, there are many places to access the beach. One of the most popular is the Disney Beach House. Again, a lot of agents don't realize that your clients could access the beach through the Disney access there. You can't go to the upstairs part. That's for your Disney Beach Club members, but you can go underneath. There's a little hamburger bar there. You can buy drinks and stuff like that, as well as restrooms. So like I said, when I'm selling Palmetto Dunes, I sell all these amenities that a lot of other plantations don't have. And it really gets people excited about being in the space. So like I said, when we get to the villa part or the house part, a lot of the objections are easily overcome because they want to be part of Palmetto Dunes.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. Joe, you want to touch on a few things as well since you live in there?
Sure, that's a great transition, Jeff. Jeff covered the amenities kind of from a higher level and shared some of the things that you may not be aware of in packages and use of amenities and things like that. So I'm going to take it down a little more personal level that may help you, give you some ideas on how to sell not just the houses or villas in Palmetto Dunes, but to sell Palmetto Dunes as a community. I've I started coming, like most of us started coming here, 20 years ago. I first went to Sea Pines and fell in love with that. When I wanted to buy a property, I started looking in Palmetto Dunes. One, the prices were a little lower back then. And I fell in love with this 11-mile lagoon. So we bought our first property in 2003 back on offshore, which is a little further back. And they were the good old days in 03, 04, 05. And we kept moving closer to the beach and ended up on Mooring Buoy when the big downturn hit. And we ultimately then sold and built a house that we live in now, that we moved into and built in 2010 on Lookout. So I'm on that 11-mile lagoon, and I'll share, without being too redundant, I'll share a little more about it. But the reason I just give you that background is I think anything you can do to personalize your tour, granted, you don't all live here, but there's maybe some anecdotes that you can share that I'll convey with you today that would be helpful, and I know clients find it very interesting. Additionally, in the last 10 years, we've built 8 or 9 homes in Palmetto Dunes, bought lots, so I'm kind of familiar with it from a lot of different areas, and I'm Palmetto Dunes' biggest proponent. It's pretty much the only area I focus and sell, and most of my sales are very turn out to be very personal, and that's the way I sell Palmetto Dunes. So what I'd like to do now is maybe walk you through a strategy to sell the community that could maybe help you shape your day, and pull all these different amenities that have been mentioned, pull it into your house hunting attempts. So I think Gloria is going to follow me. I love to start my tour, and I love to give it at least a half a day. I know in this environment, if you don't get to the house in the first 5 minutes, it's gone. But in typical environments, I like to schedule whether it's an afternoon or a morning, and not just jump to the houses, but kind of give a tour of the community. And I'll show you a little bit on how I organize it. One of the nicest things, if you look at this map about Palmetto Dunes, and one of its biggest advantages, not just to the people looking to buy, but to you as a real estate agent, is the geographic shape and layout of the community. As you can see, it's wide, 2.5 miles of beaches along the bottom, beautiful beaches, but out to the road there and across the street to Shelter Cove is only a mile, maybe 1.2. So anywhere in the community, you're walkable to the beach, you're bikeable to the beach, and they've got this great dunes buggy convenience that I'll talk about as well. That means it's really easy to get to the beach. And as we all know, closeness to beach drives everything. And fortunately for us as realtors, if you're selling Palmetto Dunes, it makes it easy to kind of sell the whole community and still get 4 or 5 or 8 houses in a few hours. So Gloria, I'm going to start here coming into the gate off of Queens Folly Road. The first thing I do is show them that Shelter Cove is kind of part of Palmetto Dunes, and that's across the street. Like Jeff mentioned, the festivals, obviously they have the restaurants, and you could sit on the marina, and I suggest that people go there and have lunch or dinner after they're done with their tour. But the other thing it has is in the fall and the spring, it has music in the harbor every Thursdays where people come, and it's like an open air fair every Thursday, and they have music. It's very nice. So I try to personalize it with that. As we come through the gate, the first thing that a lot of people ask is, there's a guardhouse right when you come in the gate, right about where your arrow is, and you generally never see anybody there, and people say, what's that there for? That's actually just gets manned. I think it's 11 o'clock at night, Ben, if I'm not mistaken, to maybe 6 in the morning. And the reason for it is those first 2 condo complexes you see, St. Andrews on the one side and Queens Grant, they're actually behind the other north and south gate. So there was a concern about security. They're part of Palmetto Dunes and they don't have it. So during the nighttime hours, that gate is manned. My wife and I, now that we've got a little older, we take great pride in being coming back at night and saying, wow, we were out long enough that the guardhouse, we had to go through the guardhouse at 11 o'clock. Doesn't happen much though. So as you come down Queens Folly Road through the guardhouse, you see St. Andrews on your left there. They back up along the golf course. And then you get to this beautiful bridge that was just redone, as Ben talked about, over the 11-mile lagoon. So I'm going to stop here for a second, not to beat the lagoon to death, but this is just a beautiful vista. And now that they fixed the bridge, it's even nicer. Unfortunately, it's probably, not the place to stop, as it's, busier coming in and out. But there are a couple other vistas that you should stop and spend some time on the lagoon. When you look down to the Leamington side, you see the Fazio course right on your left. And then there's the Arthur Hills golf course further down. When you look to the other side, you see the Robert Trent Jones course. So from one point, you can see those three things. And if you're driving in with your clients, just an excellent point to slow down and point that out. As you go further in, Jeff talked about the general store. Nice to point out, stop in there. In fact, at the end of your trip, of your house hunting, if you want to stop in and grab a soda, it's kind of a quaint little, almost country store. My daughter still goes to their website. She misses it so much now that she doesn't live here. And when you go further down, you see Alexander's. From the front, that's a restaurant, great seafood restaurant right here in the community. You can walk to it, you can bike to it. Great restaurant. It doesn't look like a lot from the front, but on the back, it's on that 11-mile lagoon. And I think Ben had mentioned this. I mean, we live on 11-mile lagoon. One of the neatest things was to take our boat and float down the lagoon and pull up to Alexander's and have tie up and have dinner there, and then go and float back the lagoon home. There aren't many places in anywhere on the East Coast that you could do things like that. As you get further in, you see the tennis center and the Robert Trent Jones golf course. In the Robert Trent Jones golf course, there's a great restaurant called Big Jim's. It's an excellent place to either start or finish your tour, sit, have a cool drink, grab something to eat, lay out your maps and go over all your stuff. It's kind of quiet in there. It doesn't get too crowded, and you could look out over, if you sit outside, you're looking out over the beautiful golf course. Again, a beautiful vista, and people can picture themselves sitting there having lunch. As you get further down to the circle, I'm going to turn, there are two directions you go, either the north gate through the Mariner section or the south gate. I'm going to go through the north gate and pull you into the Dunes house. If you park there for a minute, Gloria, I like to make that where I really start my house hunting tour and everything else. Sometimes it gets crowded or sometimes it's too warm in the summer, but I would rather have my client sitting at the Dunes house, sipping a drink while I lay out a map and talk about our day and explain some of these things than sitting in a real estate office in a conference room. To sit there and you could share some personal experiences. I live here. I say how we walk down to the Dunes house every Sunday afternoon, talk to people from all over the country, are so proud when they ask, where are you from? And we say, we live here. And they say, what's it like to live here? And I can say, it's incredible. What a great way to start your house hunting effort. So I think that's a great place to start it. And some of the things I focus on when I sit there, I pull out my map, I have my houses marked on it that we're gonna see. But one of the things I do is I keep pounding in the closeness to the beach. There aren't many communities on Hilton Head that if you're not in the first couple rows, it's very easy or even possible to get to the beach. As you can see how narrow, how shallow Palmetto Dunes is, even if you're at the further sections, the furthest you're gonna be is a mile, and that's only because you have to go down around the bridge to cross over the lagoon. On top of that, though, I highlight the Dunes buggy. It's not just like a bus that there are various stops, and yeah, there is information at the top there. It's more like your own personal taxi. You call them, they'll come to your house. You could put your beach chairs and everything in the back of the Dunes buggy van, and they drop you down to the beach path. They pick you up. You call and they come and they pick you up. Sometimes I walk down to my wife and I walk down to the Dunes house on a Sunday. May not feel like walking back. We call the Dunes buggy and brings us back home. It's free. You tip them, but it's a very great amenity that not a lot of people know about. You can use it to go across the street to Kroger, to go to Shelter Cove, to go to the park over there. So great amenity. So again, I'm really highlighting in my tour how everything is close to the beach because that drives everything. Gloria, I'm going to leave the Dunes house now and travel down Mooring Buoy. So as I go down Mooring Buoy, I like to point out the beach paths. a lot of people, you know, if you just drive through Palmetto Dunes, you may never see the beach. That's why I want to start at the Dunes House, point out the beach paths, and how beautiful they are to walk through and arrive on that beautiful sand beach. I try to shape my tour, and it's easy to do because it's laid out very conveniently that you can go down Mooring Buoy, and if you go down to Port Tack, Gloria, excellent place to turn left, and you'll see two beautiful bridges. One, the first one, and then go to the second one, Gloria. That's another beautiful vista. I'll stop there because it's not as busy. You can see the little island. I'll talk about how that's where the 4th of July boat parade starts. Everyone on their electric boats who lives here and has an electric boat, you may get 15, 20 boats that'll go down on the 4th of July, all decorated for the 4th of July. Really neat thing to share with people. I just love the lagoon, and I talk about it endlessly. The fishing. I catch 3 and 4 redfish off the dock in my backyard. If you happen to have a husband who loves to fish, it's incredible. Flounder, sheep's head, sea trout. You could drop a crab basket and get a dozen crabs in August. Just a great amenity. You know, we have a big electric boat. We're a pontoon boat. We do those boat rides. If anything is going to sell Palmetto Dunes, it's going to be that. And before you even ask, no, I can't give everyone on this call a boat ride on my boat, but I have been asked by numerous renters or realtors to do that. But an excellent place to look up and down and see the lagoon. As you go around the back area, if you follow it around offshore there, Gloria, you know, you could come right in the middle offshore. You're still only a mile to or less to the beach. And it's a very pretty walk over those bridges. And again, you don't feel like walking or riding your bike, you take the Dunes buggy. Gloria, if you follow it all the way around swing about there, you could look out at the very top of the lagoon and see where they let the water in and out of the lagoon from Shelter Cove. And again, if you shape your houses along that route, it allows you to stop, see the houses, and then just see the layout of Palmetto Dunes. If you bring it all the way around, Gloria, and back to Starboard Tack, you'll see where it's bringing you right Starboard Tack. Yeah, keep following it all the way around. You'll go over the lagoon a couple times. And again, another bridge and a beautiful vista to look up and down both ways of the golf course. You know, you're less than a half a mile here to the beach, an easy walk. And if you follow that back down and out, back out Sea Lane and out to Mooring Buoy, it's a really easy circle. And if you could shape your houses along the way, you're in good shape. Over on the other side, if you're showing in the south gate, there's one road going back on Carnoustie. If you follow it all the way back, you have your homes. I'm sorry, yeah, go back, Gloria. Yep, right there. Go straight back, go backwards. Yep. Go back on Carnoustie and you'll see the various, streets with homes. And then at the end, you could cross over the lagoon again, a beautiful vista at the top. And I stop there, and then I actually go over the Inverness villas that are across the lagoon there. There are 2 little ponds. If people like to see an alligator, there's usually 1 or 2 laying in those ponds. If they're afraid of alligators, don't stop there. As you go back down, you could also go then along St. George, and you're going down along the bottom. You could point out, how do you get to the beach with the lagoon there? There's a little bridge right there that Gloria's pointing, a little footbridge and bike bridge, and you're really right across from the beach paths. There are beach paths in between the condo sections there. So as far as showing it, I really recommend a stop first at either Big Jim's or ideally the Dunes House. If the weather is permitting and it's not too crowded, what a place to start your tour. At the end of the tour, I either like to end up there, or I'm fortunate enough to live here. I'll bring people to my house and I'll say, let's sit out on the back deck. I live down at Lookout. If you go down Lookout, we look out over the lagoon to see heron and osprey diving down and catching fish while you're sitting there and eating them on the branch. And then sometimes I'll take people out on a lagoon ride. Again, you may not be able to do that if you don't live here. If you have a friend or someone who could do that, excellent thing to do. The last thing I'll quickly end up with are a couple of anecdotes about of things you may not have thought of. Besides all the recreation of the 11-mile lagoon, you don't want to bring this up to scare people, but if there is a hurricane, they lower the lagoon. And what that does is it provides a place for storm surge or excess water to go. During Matthew, they lowered it really low. I live on the lagoon. It came up as high as the wall and took on all that water, and virtually nothing came into my yard or near my pool on one of the worst hurricanes we've had. So a tremendous advantage to the lagoon system for that. And I talked about the dunes buggy. You can't highlight that enough. Everyone who comes here would like to park their car and not have to use it again. In Palmetto Dunes, you have restaurants to go to. You could take the dunes buggy, your bike, or even a boat if you want it. If you want to get to Shelter Cove, you don't have to cross the highway. You go out Queens Folly Road. There's a little bike path that goes along the lagoon and underneath. Very pretty. You'll see people fishing there. What I get asked a lot about is it too touristy though? Does it get too busy? You know, from anyone who's used to going to beaches in the north or Myrtle, no, it looks empty compared to that. But during the summer season, it does get busier, especially bikers on the bike paths. We've made them wider, but it gets a little busy. But one of the nice things about it, from take it from someone who lives here, over the summer months, it gets busy. By the fall, August, you're ready for it to get quiet, and it does. It quiets down a little bit. But by spring, again, it's actually kind of nice to see the tourists back. Everyone you run into, you have something in common with. And it's certainly the best of both worlds to have a little busier summer and a little quieter fall and winter. And the last thing I guess I'd mention is, you know, most people who live in Palmetto Dunes and a lot of our resort residential communities, they started here renting. They weren't ready to retire. They rented, you know, we went through 3 houses until we moved here in 2010. And that's generally the vision of probably a lot of us and a lot of the people that we're talking with. So Palmetto Dunes lets you do both. You can rent the house, use it as a vacation house while you're here. Then when you decide to move here, you may move to a different house, you may spruce it up, but you don't have to leave the community that you became familiar with, you know, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, you know, until you eventually move down there. If you're not in a community that allows rentals, you can't do that. If you decide, I am sick of the tourist season, I don't want it, but I love being in Palmetto Dunes, move over to the Leamington side and live in the private residential side. So again, it gives you the best of everything. It keeps you close to the beach, no matter where you're staying, and the amenities are so accessible and easy to go to. And then finally, that 11-mile lagoon. If you haven't had the opportunity to do a lagoon ride, find a friend or someone who lives in Palmetto Dunes and take advantage of it. It's a great selling point, and it's a great thing just to enjoy the island, you know, yourself. So that's it for me.
Joe, thank you. And Jeff, thank you as well. Gloria, if you wouldn't mind, stop sharing for just a moment. I'm going to open it up for some questions. And I'm going to go back to Ben, actually. We had a couple of questions for you, Ben, if you don't mind. How soon after we request the sellers request those reports should they expect to receive them?
It'll be quickly. We have one person that does covenant compliance, but closing property inspections are her priority. So we try to turn those around in about a day. Sometimes it could take a couple of days, but as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you. I think I have one more for you. Hold on one second. Do you happen to know the full-time resident percentage?
Yeah, it's something, I don't know the exact number right now, but it is, and Joe, you might know this better than I do. It's something along the lines of 3/4 of the properties are in the rental market. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage folks to market Palmetto Dunes to full-time property owners, because there are so many great amenities here that a lot of folks aren't aware of. And to piggyback on one thing that Joe said, that a lot of people don't realize is the hurricane protection we have in Palmetto Dunes. The town engineer told me a while back that he felt that we were the most prepared for Matthew and Irma by lowering our lagoon system. And the type of work we've been doing over the last few years, we're getting recognition from other communities. They're reaching out to us for best practices. So Joe, I think you did an excellent job. Thank you.
And last one for you, Ben. Are there any foreseeable assessments coming?
The community cannot special assess unless it were to recover from a storm. But we have really good reserves in Palmetto Dunes. I don't see any type of special assessments in the near future, no.
Okay.
Hey, Ben, if I could share, for the 10 years I lived here since 2010, the only time we've had a special assessment was for 2 years with, after Matthew, to replenish the storm reserve, $150 a year for 2 years of special assessments. That's all we've seen in the 10 years I've been here.
Next question I have is, do the Leamington villas with the POA fee of $923 give them full access to all PD amenities?
Yes, yes, they do. It's called, we refer to it as the high density area. It's still part of Palmetto Dunes. You still have access to everything in there, very similar to Shelter Cove. Shelter Cove has like deeded beach access to Palmetto Dunes.
Okay. Does that also include the buggy, the Palmetto Dunes buggy?
The Dunes buggy would be available to all those people as well. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just going through. Jeff, you already answered some of these, so thank you. Can you access the lagoon from any of the condos?
The short answer is no, you're not supposed to. Most do not have the proper launching area. However, Inverness Village does have a small dock that you can launch a kayak from, or if you're fortunate enough to have a boat on the lagoon, you could pick somebody up there. And Huntington has a small dock that some people do launch kayak off of. Leamington actually has at their Leamington clubhouse there, right off of, it's right as you go through the back gate. They have a place you can store kayaks, and there's an actual kayak launch there where you can actually get on the dock and it rolls you right into the water. You can paddle right back up on it, similar to what's over at the Outfitters by Alexander's.
Hey, Jim, I forgot to mention the Outfitters when I came in, but speaking of kayaks and all, when you see the Outfitters from the front, you see all the bikes. You may not realize that they're on the lagoon, and out back they have a launch. You could rent kayaks, canoes, and take advantage of that 11-mile lagoon, even if you don't live in it. In fact, I don't know if they should or not, but I know you could even you have access to it. It's not behind a gate, that if you didn't even live in Palmetto Dunes.
And Joe, part of the reason, I mean, all the multifamily property owners pay the same assessment, the ones in Palmetto Dunes. The community really tries to make the lagoon system as accessible as possible for folks who don't necessarily live on the lagoon. Like on St. George, we have the kayak launching area for any of our members or guests. The same with off Queens Folly.
There's also an area at that first bridge when you come in. There's an area there that you can actually put a boat in there. If you had a boat on a trailer and you weren't on the lagoon, you could actually put it in there. Like a boat dock or like a launch site.
A lagoon committee, and that's one area that they want to invest some money into that boat dock as well and make it even easier to use for the members.
I just kind of assume everyone knows this, but they may not. When you talk about this lagoon, and if many of the houses are on the lagoon, if you saw that map, they're all shaped around the lagoon and the golf courses. So most backyards have either a view of a lake, a pond, a golf course, or the 11-mile lagoon if you're not in the first couple ocean rows. But what you don't have on the lagoon, you have electric boats that go slow and quiet. You don't have gas powered boats going by you, and you really don't have that much traffic. It's not a disruptive thing. It's not like you have boats going by your house a lot. It's actually nice to see them go by. If you're sitting on the porch, you wave. If you're on the boat, everyone waves to you and laughs and smiles, and it's just a great thing. It's not something that you're going to have boat traffic interfering with the serenity of where you live.
Another point on the boats on the lagoon, if you do have a client that purchases a home on the lagoon and wants to buy a boat, they definitely should check with the POA first and get the dimensions that are required, because you don't want to get a boat that won't fit under the bridges due to width or height. So they'll have the dimensions that you should get for a boat that you were looking for.
Okay, a couple more questions. Ben, I think this is for you. Where do we pick up the postcards regarding the PD inspections?
At our offices at 16 Queens Folly, Sarah is in the office until 1 o'clock Monday through Thursday, and that's the best place to pick up the postcards.
Thank you. And then last one, are they considering allowing golf cart usage to residents on the PD side, like in Leamington?
I doubt it. I hear about it every so often, but the concern is that with all of our visitors, it wouldn't be safe, especially if folks started riding the golf carts on the bike paths. Ultimately, it'd be a board decision, but no, I doubt that's going to happen.
Leamington actually does allow golf carts. The Leamington, the housing part, not the high density where the villas are, but Leamington itself does allow golf carts. They actually have golf cart parking spaces down by their beach club.
Okay, and then another one that just came in, it says, I'm interested in clarifying the aspects of the community pool in Palmetto Dunes. Listings commonly are missed. Some say no pool, some say community pool, which is correct?
Palmetto Dunes PD POA does not have a community pool. Greenwood used to have a pool. They do not now.
So it's the individual communities within Palmetto Dunes have their own private pools.
Exactly, the multifamily, and Jeff could speak to Leamington.
Yeah, Leamington does have a pool that's part of your annual fee over there. That's the first little clubhouse when you come in that back gate. It has the pool has a little clubhouse where you could have lunch, dinner, cookout. The kayak launch is there. There's a huge deck that overlooks the lagoon. And in addition to that, they also have the beach club, which is down there. But most of the villa complexes are going to have their own pool.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much. I think we've answered all of the questions. So Joe, Jeff, and Ben, thank you so much for today's information. We truly appreciate your time today. So thank you.
It was enjoyable. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy.
Bye, guys.